Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you're new, welcome. I've been working on some little fall coasters. I have leaf, pumpkin, acorn, and today I am making sort of a sunflower design. My granddaughter says it looks like the sun, and it's sort of free form. You're going to make your own paper piecing pattern, and it's pretty simple, but paper piecing is tricky. Just have fun with it and don't worry about perfection. It'll come out like it comes out, and I kind of cut things bigger so that I can cut them down and I don't worry about it too much. I know I lost a point right here, so that's one of the tricky parts with making these points, is losing your points, but just go easy on yourself. Let's get started. Here's the first little coaster I made, sunflower coaster, and it's about 5 inches square. So what I'm going to use for my coaster is, first I'm going to draw my pattern, and I began with some paper, and I'm going to cut a square that's 5.5 inches square. And I showed you my little strips first off, some white strips and orange strips that are 1.5 inches wide by 3 inches long. I drew 2 arcs, 2 curved lines on my square where I want my petals to go, and then I just drew some nice long pointed petals starting from the shorter arc or curved line to the top curved line. And after I drew these, they're not all the same. Like I said, this is very free form. I have 6 petals, and I'm going to cut my pattern, and I'll use that center piece as my paper piecing pattern. I'm going to be sewing right on that paper. My paper is computer paper, which was okay. If you had something thinner, that would be even better. Paper piecing, you put the fabric on the opposite side of your pencil line. So I'm starting with a white strip of fabric, and I'm going to try to line up my orange piece of fabric with that pencil line, and I'll sew on the pencil line, then I'll turn it over and open my fabric and see if I did it right. I do make mistakes sometimes on this. You just rip it out and try again, but it is helpful to, one, use a small stitch to keep your piece. It's easier to tear the paper off, and then after I'd sewed my seam and checked that it was going the right direction, I trimmed off the excess fabric. After finger pressing that first orange strip, I'm going to add a white strip. First I laid it down sort of the way it would look, and then I turned it right sides together, turn it over, and make sure it's lined up with the next sewing line, the next pencil line, and I sewed along the pencil line. And I wanted to mention that I tried to sew a 1/4 inch longer on each side of my arc, so that when I trim, I need to add a 1/4 inch for my seam. I'm going to go along and do the same thing all the way around this sunflower petal piece. I'm going to add some orange strips and alternating with white strips. I'll finger press, I will cut off the excess, and when I'm done, I'll show you how we're going to get this all together. You'll see here that I don't have a point where these flower petals come together, so I went back and added a seam that was just a little bit bigger, and that took care of my problem. So my set of petals here is a little bit longer than I need, and I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'm going to trim 1/4 inch away from the edge, both on the outside of this curve and on the inside of this curve. That'll give me the 1/4 inch seam that I need. Here I'm cutting that piece I need for my quilt block. Here I added 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to need 1/4 inch seam added for all the pieces from that paper pattern that I made. Then I took off the paper from the back of my paper pieced flower petals. They're not my favorite job, and if you do use paper, just try to find the lightest weight paper. It makes it easier, and remember to use a tiny stitch. Then I eased the two pieces together. After I found the center, I kind of pinned the center where they came together, and since these pieces are generous size, they're not exactly the size that I need, I'm putting them together and they will be trimmed down. So that makes the stress level just go down a little bit when you're putting these pieces together. Then I need one more piece for the top, and this white piece of fabric this square I have here is way too big. It's easier for me, I guess, to see things when it's really big, and I wasn't sure how big it was going to come out, so I just made it really big. I added again 1/4 inch seam after I drew a very light pencil line on this last piece for this quilt block, and then again I just eased those two pieces together with a 1/4 inch seam, and I pressed. I'm going to trim my quilt block to 5.5 inches so that in the end I'll have a 5-inch coaster. I'm starting out a little bit bigger than I need. I'm starting with 6 inches, and then I'll kind of center it and figure out what part I'm going to be trimming off. And then I'll put it together just like I did my other coasters, and this will be a nice addition to the pumpkin, the acorn, and the leaves. Getting some batting on my quilt block here, I just quilted very simply through that seam, sort of a stitch in the ditch along those two curved seams, and then I put 3 quilted lines diagonally through this really pretty sunflower. After pressing the edges in, I top stitched all the way around and I closed up that hole, and I'm really happy with the way this little sunflower turned out. You know, it's only a part of a sunflower, but you can kind of tell it's sort of fall looking, and it goes along really nicely with all the other coasters. Thanks for joining me on this little sewing adventure, this free form sunflower. It's always fun to sew with you. I'll see you next time.